Welcome back to another episode of The Ordinary Experience. Today I have with me actually one of my inspirations from YouTube, a young lady that I've been following, a young woman that I've been following for a while, the management consultant. Kajol, welcome.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me here, Viraj.
No, it's my pleasure, honestly. How's your week been?
Yeah, it's been really good. It's a bit tiring this week. As I said, I've been training up all the analysts this week, so it's been really tiring actually, but really fun. How about you? How's your week been?
It's not been too bad. I have the 9 to 5 I find quite boring, so all my fun comes from YouTube and the creative endeavors. But I've been doing a bit of research into cryptocurrency and trying to take the channel down a personal finance route and trying to, utilize that economics degree of mine.
Yeah, you might as well, right?
Tell me about it. £68,000 later, and yeah, might as well use it. But today I wanted to get behind the brand of the management consultant and talk to Kajol.
Thanks.
But also talk about why you got into management and why you decided to create, and also touch on a topic I feel that I understand is quite important to you, and that is South Asians and the South Asian culture and the South Asian community. How does that sound?
Yeah, I'm so for this. I'm
Let's
ready. I am ready.
Do this. Okay. All right, let's get the big question out of the way. Why management? Like why Big Four? What about it brought you into that world?
So I'm not sure if you know, but I actually studied physics at university.
I did.
So even before that, actually, let's just take a step back. All the way growing up, my dad owns newsagents around central London. So for me, I've kind of been born and brought up working in the newsagent. And like when someone gives you £10 and you're mentally calculating how much change do I need to give? That's essentially, I used to like thrive off that. I used to feel hyped whenever I got the right change. So for me, honestly, when I say that I love solving problems, I honestly do. And that kind of transferred to me studying physics at university, because I always wanted to answer some of these big questions in life, like, who created the universe? Does God exist? All these, big ultimate questions. But as I started doing, physics, I realized that actually, hang on here, I can't really touch and feel it. So for me, I wanted to make a real impact on the world in some form of way, combined with my love for problem solving, and that for me was joining consulting, where essentially you're solving business problems just to help them gain more revenue or to reduce their costs. So consulting for me was the first step to allow me to, one, make an impact on the world, and secondly, solve problems, which I love doing.
I find that interesting. You said tangible. I've never looked at it in that way, and I really respect individuals that go into consulting, individuals that work as accountants, because I feel that while it's looked at as a kind of, in some worlds, an easy profession, it's not. It's not at all. And I like the way that you described that, as I took the theoretical and I made it tangible.
Love the eye look, by the way.
We're getting used to it. I've got to use those YouTube skills as well. It can't just always be podcasting. But so can you touch on who you work for?
Yeah, I work for Deloitte. It's it's the biggest consulting firm all across the globe, and the fastest growing consulting firm all across the globe at the same time. I work in digital strategy, right, mixed with proposition design. So I do a couple of things. I help to create and launch new products and services, aka basically like creating a startup instead of a big corporate firm. And I also help to basically solve business strategies for a lot of my firms as well, a lot of my clients as well.
So you're like the entrepreneurship creator.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, that is right, right?
Yeah, entrepreneurship, exactly. So how do I term this? Essentially, before during consulting, I had a few startups, so I was an entrepreneur essentially. Okay. I realized that I couldn't scale my ideas. So I thought I had really good ideas, but I didn't know. I hope so, but I couldn't really scale it. So for me, also, that was another reason I joined consulting, because all these big firms, all they do every day is they basically solve big problems, and they help to they execute it really well. And that's what I wanted to learn. So I want to join, you know, Deloitte to do that. So the thing is, I'm still here 4 years later, and that's because I'm basically like, instead of being an entrepreneur, I'm being an intrapreneur right now.
Right.
So I'm kind of doing what I love, but for big corporate firms at the same time, and gain the same skills that I would have done or used as an entrepreneur, which a lot of people don't realize when you join consulting is really entrepreneurial, I would say.
For me, it was, I always saw the bad rap of consultancy. My uncle was a consultant for IBM. He's my godfather, actually. Was a consultant for IBM for like 19 years. He worked in sales, and so sales is a whole different beast. And it was always quite interesting hearing the stories, but it was never what I wanted to do. What I wanted was, at the period of time, was I wanted the fast cars, the big houses, and so I chose banking and economics, which didn't work out. But I like the fact that I've been able to use, or am using, my degree, because there is a nice element to it. So you studied physics, right?
Yeah.
How did you then how did you make the shift into, like, did you have a conversation with someone? Was it just off your own back that you decided to go into consultancy? Or was it like, I got a physics degree and then I was like, oh, I can use those skills, like you said, and change those untangible skills into tangible skills?
Yeah, so I think it all stemmed because I knew that I needed to learn how to scale and execute my ideas. And I was like, okay, where can I learn that from? And after going to a few careers fairs, I realized actually it's not going to be banking, it's going to be consulting. So essentially, I was going to use consulting as a stepping stone to leave and eventually go and start my own startup again and try again after I gained those skills from a big consulting firm. So that's why I ended up going into consulting. And yeah, I actually love it.
So you've been doing it for 4 years, right?
4 years now.
4 years, damn, man,
long time.
That is a long time. I'm starting my first job, so for me, this whole working world it's a whole different beast. But I'm getting used to it. Why Deloitte? Is there any specific reason why Deloitte? Or is it just they gave you the job? Why not go for KPMG or one of the other ones?
Not gonna lie, I applied really late. So I applied when the whole thing, all the applications were over, and there were two, Deloitte and PwC.
Right.
But I could have waited for the following year, but I decided not to do that. But at the same time, another big reason I chose Deloitte was because Deloitte was the first Big Four firm to have a female CEO in the USA. So that was a key reason to me, because I knew that there were at least, you know, positions of leadership where women, you know, were showcased, right? So that's one of the biggest reasons I did choose Deloitte at the end. But you know, I would love to say Deloitte would be my first choice, but I would say it was one out of two choices at that time, and I didn't really want to wait. I wanted to make the money at that time when I first started, just so that I could quickly go and then like leave it and take my skills later as well. So yeah.
That's quite important, realizing that you don't have a glass ceiling, so to speak. Like, you have the ability to scale the whole company from, you know, entry level role to CEO if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Do you think you would be CEO of Deloitte one day?
No, I don't think I'll be CEO of Deloitte one day, actually. I don't think so. I don't know if I'll stay at Deloitte. I'm coming through this career crisis right now. Like, do I stay at Deloitte, or do I go and do my own thing, or do I go to industry? So I'm kind of like passing through that right now. But I would love to be a CEO of a company. Like, who wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
And have you seen that meme? It's like, what's your favorite position? CEO. Yeah.
I haven't seen. You got to send me that afterwards. That sounds hilarious.
I'll send you the meme. And I love that meme. But no, I think I would love to be a CEO, but I don't think it's going to be Deloitte. I think time it takes to do that. Deloitte would take a very long time.
Right. How would you have any advice for people getting into consulting? Like, is there any that you'd say is off? Obviously, I wanted them to go to your YouTube channel because that's amazing and that's something we're going to touch on. But just like off the cuff, what are your biggest learnings?
To get into consulting?
To get into consulting, what it's like, anything that comes to mind that you think is important.
So, firstly, don't feel like you have to jump into consulting straight away. Sometimes there are little stepping stones that you need to do to get into consulting. So you don't feel like you want everything right now and you want it on, or if you don't get it, your whole career is going to go to shit. It's not going to. So sometimes take it easy, take it slowly, and you might need a few stepping stones to get there. Secondly, don't underestimate the transferable skills you have, because even working at Mackie D's, you have communication, you have, logical skills which you can transfer to consulting. And I think people really downplay. And thirdly, just because you don't think you're going to get it, don't not apply. Apply even if you don't think you're going to get it, in my opinion. A lot of us feel a lot of us kind of have imposter syndrome, right? Where we feel like, oh no, I don't think I don't think I should apply because I'm not going to get it anyway. So why should I apply? Totally false. The biggest thing the worst thing that will happen is that you're going to get a no. So you might as well not regret it and just apply, in my opinion. There's a couple of learnings that I've learned.
I like that mentality. I like that mentality. You take it on the chin. You just go to the next one.
Exactly. Keep on going. Keep on moving. You know how Dory says, keep on swimming.
I love it. That's what I'm gonna call this episode potentially. Just casual, keep on swimming.
With my face like memed on a fish.
I like that. Okay, so speaking of transferable skills, you have in the last, I believe it's a year and a half, YouTube.
What?
You started on that YouTube journey and started getting.
I think it's been 8 months. 8 months, I think.
8 months.
Yeah.
Why? I think is the biggest question. You're sitting in what is quite a lovely job in some people's eyes, a good job, a job that has potential to earn a bit of cash and at the same time grow into a career. Why did you choose to pick up YouTube?
A couple of reasons. But my main reason would be so essentially I think in the UK you get a certain, sorry, let me start this one again, sorry. So I don't know how to start it. Okay, so essentially in the UK, you get a certain divide in information, right? So let's just be honest, more prestigious universities get better prepared to go into some of these higher paid earning jobs. Whereas some of the, the universities which, some people may not think are ranked as highly, don't get the same access to opportunities as the other individuals are. So one of my things I wanted to do was bridge that gap, ensure that everyone gets equal access to opportunities, be it if you go to a lower ranking university or a higher ranking university, be better prepared. Because I don't think Oxford and Cambridge are cleverer than other universities. They're just better prepared. So me trying to give this information to everyone enables them to have the most preparation before they go and apply, essentially. So that was one of my reasons I really want to start this YouTube channel.
So it was to bring up the bottom line basically and put everyone on an equal footing.
Exactly.
Is that because you didn't have an equal footing, or is that because you saw that other people didn't?
I think I saw other people didn't. I would say my university were really good at giving this information, but I just never took it. Like I didn't really hear about consulting until my third year of university, my last year of university. But I definitely saw that there was a need for people to, one, understand what consulting is, because a lot of people don't know what consulting is. I didn't know about it till my third year of university. And two, get the same equal access to opportunities, aka be prepared the same amount.
Wow, I've never considered it from that point of view. I genuinely thought that you got into YouTube because you saw a problem in the consulting world. It's beautiful that it's come from a really authentic place, and it's something that's quite close to your heart as well. What's it been like juggling the YouTube and the management career? Because like I do it and I'm just starting out, but for you 8 months in, it must be crazy.
Yeah. It's a struggle at times, I'm not going to lie. You see these YouTubers always posting about time management. They're all like, they wake up at 4 a.m, they do morning routines and all this stuff. No, that's not me. I'm out of my bed, 8:30, let's say, rolling to what we'll do on my laptop. And then evenings, I'm working till like 8, 9, 10 p.m. sometimes. So then to work on YouTube and, Instagram, speak at events, all this other stuff I do, mental startups on the side, it's a struggle. I'm not going to lie. So I have decided to put my mental health first, and I spend one day, ideally, out of the week or fortnight where I do nothing. Like I watch TV, I chillax, and that recharges me to keep on working and grinding for the rest of the week or the rest of the fortnight.
Okay, so I've got to ask, because I think this is I'm looking in a mirror right now, and I'm realizing that I don't do that. As a creator, 9 to 5er is what I like to call it, but also someone that wants to get into the crypto world, whether it's to trade currency or to understand the technologies and start an online business. I feel like I have no time. So how do you mentally prepare yourself to take a day off? Because it's easy to say it, right? Understanding how you go about it. Like, what deal do you make with yourself? Is there a deal? How do you go about, where does that mindset come from?
So let me give you an instance today. Today I was meant to film something, script and film today. But I said to myself, I realized in the morning that today is not going to be that day. I can do it. So what I'll do, I'll work twice as hard this coming week so that on the next weekend I'll film 2 videos instead of 1.
Right.
So it's like a deal that I've said to myself, right? If I don't stick to that deal, well, I don't know what's gonna happen. But I hope I stick to the deal. Now, you have to make sacrifices. That's the thing. You can't manage all this stuff without making sacrifices, because you only have 24 hours in the day. So when someone shows that they're working on so many things, they've given up something to work on that, right?
Yeah.
It could be friends, relationships, could be TV, chillaxing time. But you need to understand what's really important to you. What are you willing to sacrifice, and what are you not willing to sacrifice? To me, I'm not willing to sacrifice that one day in the week where I can recharge, and it kind of recharges my creativity as well, I would say. So you need to realize, what are you not willing to give up? For me, I'm not willing to give up, watching my Netflix and chilling with my family, right? I need it to keep me going, because then it's sustainable. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise your life that you're living is not sustainable. I realized in the first 4 months of my YouTube stuff I was doing, it wasn't sustainable what I was doing. Right. So then I made active changes to understand, okay, what works for me and what doesn't work for me. And I've kind of got into my rhythm now. But I give weeks like this week off to myself where, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do anything, but I still feel guilty. Like even today, I'm like, okay, I feel guilty not writing a script. Do you know what I mean? Or writing a...
Oh yeah, I feel you. I do it in a batching process. So I script 4 videos over the course of a week in the evenings, and then that week I will edit those videos. But it usually takes me like 2 or 3 days to edit a video, just because there's a mode that I've got to get into. I like my content to be not just bam, 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 bam. I like it to have like a purpose and a meaning behind it. And primarily because it comes from such a deep place within me that I'm like, okay, I want to show my mistakes, but I also want to show how we can be the best versions of ourselves. And that always doesn't work out, because there are some evenings where I'm like, just screw this. This is so tough. I just want to sleep. I want to look through social media. So I'm figuring out my balance, because right now I am not balanced at all. I used to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I used to get an hour's worth of yoga in, meditation, breath work. But this was back when I didn't have a 9 to 5. And then I used to go and do the whole day's worth of editing. And then I could sit in the evening and do nothing. But yeah, I think I'm going to take a leaf out of your book and definitely take today off.
You need it to recharge, I think. And you need it to keep on going. I feel that when people say that, they strive to work-life balance, there is no work-life balance. You're never going to get a work-life balance. But that's fine, right? As long as you kind during a year, make sure you balanced it out. There are going to be certain weeks where work takes priority, where life takes priority. Just make sure by the end of the year you've got a balance, I would say, or what balance works for you. Because for me, I wouldn't be able to work 50%. I would say I wouldn't be able to have a life of 50%. I need to work, aka YouTube and all this stuff, at least 70%. And 30% of it is my life, which I'm living. That's how I kind of see it.
Oh, so you look at the macro picture.
I'm looking at the macro. Don't
like
focus
that.
on micro. Long term, always, never short term, because that's when you're gonna get end term results.
Is there a time frame on the YouTube? Do you have like a goal in mind, or is it I'm just going to do this until it becomes something?
I think I'm just gonna do it until it becomes something. Hopefully, it becomes something.
No, it's going to become something. I'm going to.
I hope so. I don't know, because I feel like YouTube is quite tough. You don't get the results that you do on other social media, and it takes much more longer time.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel that when you look at numbers, you are going to get demotivated.
Mm-hmm.
When you focus on why you're doing something and the purpose behind it, that keeps you going. And I always say to myself, passion gets me started, but purpose keeps me going with whatever I do. So for me, working on YouTube isn't a numbers game. It's a, hey, I actually really enjoy this. I'm learning so many different skills, and I'm getting connected and meeting different people who I've never spoken to before, right? So the very fact I can do that just keeps me going at the same time, I would say.
What's it like to be someone that, deals with numbers as someone that mentors startups, in a consultancy job, and having to change that kind of, have a shift, a mental shift to say, this isn't about the numbers, this is about impacting people. How do you do that?
So I'm not gonna lie, I do put metrics on how many people I impact rather than subscribers and growth. So I don't focus on growth metrics. Like I want to grow to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year, right? For me, it's like, okay, I focus on quality, like, how many people actually found it useful, and then impact in terms of, okay, how many people has this content helped, right? And some of the messages I get via Instagram, for instance, kind of showcases that to me. So I don't really need to focus on growth, because I think when you focus on growth, you're going to sacrifice important things like quality to keep you going, if that makes sense.
So
I'm just digressing now.
No,
I'm
absolutely.
rambling.
Look, this is one of these podcasts where I like to ramble because there's a lot of knowledge in rambling. Part of the reason why I started podcasting, this second kind of, or you could call it season of podcast, is I realized that as humans, as individuals, we all have knowledge wrapped up in our heads that we don't always share. You're one of these individuals that is so open to sharing, and I commend you for that. But take my instance, my father, he doesn't always openly share stuff with like the public, but getting him on the podcast and sharing the fact of how he was able to basically allow me to live the life that I live on a single income, I think is important for other people to hear.
Yeah.
It's not all celebrities, athletes, musicians, Navals of the world, or billionaires that have all of this knowledge. We've all got knowledge, and it just, sometimes you need to be on the same wavelength as that person.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think you're completely right. I do treat my YouTube though as a business, I would say.
I definitely try to.
Yeah, I definitely think of it like, okay, I'm growing a startup. What do I need to keep in mind, right? So there are definitely
I think I'm gonna have to book in a session with to talk about.
Kajol. Come over. I definitely do treat it as a business. The way that you hack growth in a startup, I think about it sometimes for my YouTube. I definitely check my analytics and all this stuff. I definitely even test and learn. So sometimes my intros are really long. Sometimes I'm actually like, hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Sometimes I go straight into it. I mix it up to test what works and what doesn't work, and then I use what works for the next video. And that's kind of, I literally right now I still am testing, I think, but I literally, take different things, see what works and what doesn't work, and then apply it for the next video. And that's how I literally treat my YouTube as a startup in that way.
I think I'm going to do that. I'm editing a video right now. I'm definitely going to use that. because I always end mine. I like the ending on mine. I say, as always, it's a pleasure, and I'll see you in the next one. But the starts, I'm trying to play with, but I like what you've done and said, if that works, I'll use it in the next one. Otherwise, I'll beta test another one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm
That's
definitely gonna do
literally
that.
what I do.
I think definitely. Just let me know your hourly rate, and I'll book in a session. Yeah.
Come over. Well, you free always, free always.
Oh, thank you, auntie, thank you, auntie. On the topic of, beta testing stuff and YouTube, how do you remain creative? Like, where do you come up with the ideas? Do you take it from the personal world of what am I struggling with, or do you look at the management side of your career and say, this is a problem that needs to be solved, and do you use that same type of problem solving, so to speak?
In terms of ideas for the next video,
Yeah, ideas for the next video.
I'm being honest with you. I just ask the people who follow me. Sorry. So just like a startup, right? They need to listen to their customers and to understand what they want. I do the same thing. So I literally go to my following and I ask them, like, what do you want to see? And that's how I literally get ideas from that. And then I kind of put it into a Notion and think about, okay, what kind of events or trends are coming up, right? So for example, application season starting means I need to use certain ideas at that time.
Right.
So I basically get ideas from my customers, aka my followers, aka my family, and then I basically overlay on a calendar, thinking, okay, what's going to be most useful to my following and when, and then I kind of choose which topics to talk about.
That's interesting. Is it because I've heard this debate around how, as a creator, you are the creator, so why the hell are you asking me what I want?
Yeah.
But I like the way that you've been able to use what they've said, repackage that into something that works for your channel, and time it with the calendar seasons, because that's obviously just a good business decision.
And I think the best content happens when it's something that you're really passionate about, but also whoever is following you really wants to listen to it. So if you find anything in that overlap, you kind of stick with that first. That's how I kind of see it. Then your second priority would be what they want to hear, and then your third priority is what you want to talk about. So it's like a Venn diagram. The middle was the first thing, and then you go second and third. Is how
What's it been like having to deal in your personal life with the YouTube, as well as the career that you're building?
Oh, in terms of work?
In terms of work and personal, because obviously you've got friends, right? Like, you do have friends. Yeah, of course you have friends.
Hopefully I have friends.
Your auntie Kajol. I don't know why I asked that. So in your friends, were they quite supportive? Were they like, Kajol, you should really do this, Kajol, you're awesome? Or was it very much on the work side? Were they kind of boosting you to become an inspirational leader within the company? Or did they not like it?
So my friends have been really supportive, but I would say they don't actually understand how much hard work goes behind it, because everyone always sees the end result as just a video, right? But I don't think they understand actually how much time it takes. So I would say before YouTube, I definitely had very social life. So every day, every week, every weekend I would be out with my friends 24/7. I'm not going to lie.
Really?
So yeah. So kind of flipping that now to me being a hermit, it's been quite a shock to my friends, I would say. But in terms of my work, they've been really supportive. A lot of people are actually really surprised how supportive they've been. But my firm have put my stuff on the analyst training scheme. They've reshared my stuff. So I know consulting firms who've not been that kind, and they've asked people to take down their YouTube channels.
Have they?
Yeah, I know some firms have done that. Whereas my firm has been incredibly supportive. So that's like just a massive thank you to them, because it's freedom of speech at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, I definitely believe in that. My dad believes in freedom to think, not always freedom to do, but that's a conversation that usually takes place within these four walls of this house. doesn't always go further than that, but it's always quite funny. How has family been supported? Okay, first and foremost, do family know that you do YouTube?
Yeah,
They do.
100%. I live with family, so I wouldn't be able to do it without them knowing. Family have been incredibly supportive. My brother is like, Kajol, keep on going. Be Ali Abdal, keep on going.
Ali Abdal is an inspiration to us all.
Yeah. But my mom has been really supportive. Sometimes she's like, it's I think my parents have been really supportive. It's just more like security and like,
Right.
okay, Kajol, is it safe? You know, are random people contacting you? Are you ever going to get into trouble by doing this? Make sure your firm, you know, is okay with everything you're doing. So that, you know, how parents are always cautious. They want the best for us, and hence they
Mhm.
are being cautious. So it's just kind of been like that. But my family have been really supportive. So I've been lucky in that way because, you know, my friends are supportive, my work's supportive, and my family's supportive. There's not really much more you can ask, right?
Now you got the kind of
Yeah,
you got the three in a triangle. What was that called?
it's been really good.
The holy grail of supportive networks.
And I
Do
know that people haven't been as lucky,
Mhm.
but I would say is that you just need to kind of put their comments to one side, keep on going, because once you let those comments affect you, that's when you will get demotivated and you won't perform as well when you're, you know, when you're passionate about something, whatever it is.
Almost definitely. I had an incident. I had a yeah, you call it an incident in India when I was living out there, where someone was basically absolutely slating the app that I was trying to build, and me being me, or me being the person that I was am, would have in that situation turned into the guard dog that I turned into and gone head to head, which wouldn't have ended in a good conversation. But to use what you were saying is I put it in a black box, in a little black box, and I take their opinion, I put it in there, kind of like a piggy bank. And when I need that opinion, I take it out, I look at it, and I say, is this necessary for this situation? And if it isn't, I put it back in the box, or at least I try to. It's not easy, especially when you're used to just replying and not listening.
Yeah,
But I've tried to turn into an individual that absorbs, notes it all down, and then uses that information when I need to.
I love
Doesn't
that.
always work out. Doesn't always work out. You know, as humans, we always screw up and we always react. But I try.
No, I love that. I love that. And I always think about it like, you know, are other people also saying the same thing? Because the importance of that opinion means more when there are more voices saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, don't give two shits about
No,
it.
most definitely. I think the biggest issue with starting YouTube
Mm,
is to get over yourself first,
yeah.
and then you have to deal with everyone else's opinion, because they're always gonna. Everyone's entitled to an opinion, but you have to get over your own opinion of yourself, of what you're doing, and start on that, because it is a journey, right? Like YouTube is a journey, creating is a journey.
And I think that's a really key thing that you touched upon because for a lot of people starting when they join YouTube, the first thing I think that goes through their mind is what will other people think of me
Yeah.
whenever they start a YouTube channel. For me as well, right? What will my clients think of me? What will my colleagues think of me at work, right? If they found my YouTube channel. So you look, in my opinion, there's always those people who are going to be bold and risk takers, and those end up getting what they want, and those people who kind of just sit back and don't do anything, right? If you don't try, you're never going to get. So you might as well try, right?
What
Who
have you got to
cares?
lose?
Yeah, exactly. What have you got to lose, right? And if the people don't support you, are they really your friends? Are they really people who, you know, that you should care about? Is how I also see it.
Yeah. I I think that YouTube is actually a great way of understanding who you want to be surrounded with,
Yeah.
or creating in general, and seeing where your supportive network's at. Not to say that you have friends. If you have friends that aren't supportive, you should just throw them out to the side. I believe in a philosophy that Tupac said once. He was like, I want you to eat, just not at my table. Like I
Yeah.
want everyone to grow. We've never met in person. We've only connected over the internet, but we're on the same wavelength. I want you to grow. You are a friend. Can I call you a friend?
Yes, of course. It's corporate. Oh, I'm so privileged.
You're a friend, and I want to see you grow. But there are other people out there where I'm
Likewise.
like, pardon?
I was
Hi,
like,
friend.
hi, friend. Likewise, likewise.
Where I just don't want you to eat at my table for the time being. Like we're not connecting in that same way, but I want to see you succeed.
Mm.
And turning into that mental state and getting that mental shift has been really useful for me because I'm like, I have nothing to lose. I I am my own supportive network first. Everyone else is just the golden parachute. And when it turns into that, you're like, oh, so I don't need to have people around me always. I don't always need to be connecting with my friends. I can connect with strangers and they can become my friends, like Clubhouse, for instance. Clubhouse is a whole different beast of friends that I've got. Not all my friends do that type of work and are creative in those ways. They have different passions and different pursuits. But I've got those. They're I went to boarding school, so my family is literally at boarding school. Like the boys I grew up with and the girls I grew up with, we don't always talk, but to me, they're family.
Yeah.
On Clubhouse, there's a new family developing. There's a new set of individuals that I'm really getting to know, like Faraz and yourself, and it's pretty personal. I'm getting her on the channel, on the podcast, and so developing those relationships has been great. And I'm sure there'll be individuals in there that don't want to sit at my table, but that's cool because I still want to see you grow.
No, I feel the same. And I think that you can host dinner parties when you want to and call those people to your table when you want to. Well, that time isn't now,
Yeah.
right?
I was Rick Ross. I don't know where these quotes are coming from. I don't know what bank I'm going into.
Love it, love it.
Rick Ross was like, you need to. No, it wasn't Rick Ross. It was Meek Mill. Was like, you need to have different friends for different things.
Yeah, and I agree. And I also think that for me anyway, I show different parts of my personalities depending on which group I'm with.
Yeah.
And I think that allows you to express your creativity, be yourself, but not show your whole self sometimes, which is also a blessing, I find, for myself anyway. Because you can show. Okay, don't worry, I'm gonna leave that because it wasn't
No,
going anywhere.
I like that. You know why I like that? Because I used to suffer from what was essentially imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I think it's called that, but I used to see myself as being a chameleon and being able to kind of walk into different places and become a different person as a negative because it wasn't me showing my true self. But I realized that is my true self. And having the ability to talk to older gentlemen that are from a different era regarding business and politics, and then transverse that into, oh, we've got a science class, like we need to talk science, or then and then turn that into coming home and eating with the family and like the family atmosphere. Having the ability to context change like that, I never understood until getting into this how useful that is. Because you've got to switch. Like we're going to jump off this podcast, and I've got to switch into home life. Like I can't just be on podcast mode all the time.
Yeah,
And
no,
I think that's a great point that people don't always realize.
I think people see it as a negative, but I really see it as a positive.
Almost definitely.
And it allows parts of you to re-energize. So when I'm an introvert, right? So sometimes at home, I would say I'm much more quiet, I'm much more introverted, but that allows my extroverted part of me to re-energize, if that makes sense, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, you've got
it
one
allows,
side. You've got one.
yeah,
It's like those electric cars that have the power generation when you brake.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you're braking and you're recharging your extrovert so that when you go onto YouTube, you've got the energy, or you jump
exactly,
onto the meetings, you've got the energy. I
exactly.
like that. I like that a
That's
lot.
how I see it.
Okay, so you talk about a part of yourself. We're gonna get into the nitty gritty stuff now. This is the stuff close to the heart.
Here we go.
Talk to me about being South Asian because I think we come from two different worlds because this is a story that not many people know. When I was a kid, I've been born and born up in Surrey. I am third generation Indian. I only heard the word South Asian about 3 weeks ago when you invited me on your Clubhouse.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
I've never heard it in that terminology because I've always seen South Asian as Malaysian because it's South Asia. And when I was a kid, I went to a school called Squirrels, and I came home one day and I said to my dad, "Am I white?"
Mm.
I am white, right? And he pulled me in front of a mirror and said, "No, you're brown."
Wow.
I didn't understand what I'd said at that time. It's only when I reflect on it now that I'm like, I have been brought up around English individuals, you know, people with white skin, or people with European Caucasian skin. Talk to me about what it's like to be a South Asian in society, but also a South Asian woman in consultancy.
A big question. How am I even meant to tackle that question? That is so, bro. I could talk for hours on this, bro.
Let's do it.
I had something quite similar in the sense that I went to school and grew up in an area which is purely white. I would say there were two to three South Asian girls in my year, growing up. So I've never been surrounded by South Asians as well. Only until university, I was like, oh my gosh, brown folk, you know. But the thing is that I grew up in a family which were quite stuck to our roots in a way. So my mum would do puja every day.
For people that don't know, what is puja?
Sorry, it's just essentially a ritual which we do every morning where we pray to God, essentially. And then we celebrate festivals in our house, you know, my family fast and stuff like that as well. So I would say that we're quite rooted to our traditions growing up, but I never found anyone like me when I was growing up, if that makes sense. So there was no one for me to relate to. When I went into university, I was like, oh my God, brown folk, oh my God, I found my people. That's how I actually, like, I think that's what I actually thought in my brain.
Just to give you a quick story, I had the same kind of thing. I'd never seen as that many brown people in one space at one time, and I was like, yo, there's people with my skin color here. And I tried to dive into it, and I realized that I'm just not built that way.
Yeah.
But
built that way in what way? Say this.
Built that way in. I had been so westernized, and the way I'd been brought up was so different. Like a lot of the people I met were from mainland India, because I went to rural Holloway. So there was Indians there, and there was Indian Pakistanis. There were Pakistani individuals there, Bangladeshis, Sri Lankans, and then there was a whole heap of people from London and Slough and Hounslow and those areas. And so it was always different to the way I'd been brought up, because some of those individuals are, you know, they're second generation South Asians, and it was always difficult connecting, because on the surface we're the same. But when you dive into it, like I didn't get any of the memes, like the Indian memes. I didn't know what any of those were. Like I had a real issue with like music, like brown music, South Asian music. I love the traditional stuff. My dad plays tabla, but I couldn't deal with it at home.
Yeah.
And so connecting on that level was always difficult. Like I was always a bit hesitant to kind of show or kind of dive into that side of myself and try and tap into that, just because I always thought, yeah, we're not the same. But I thought we were, because we looked the same.
Yeah, and the thing is, you don't need to dive deep into it if you don't want to. Sometimes I feel that people feel a pressure to embrace a certain part of themselves just because they look a certain way. That shouldn't be the case. So like you mentioned, you know, this pressure of showcase of being connected to your Indian roots, right? When maybe you're not, it should be normalized. It should be fine, because there are people who potentially look down on you because you're not Indian in your values, if that makes sense, or sorry, South Asian in your values. And that's completely fine if you're not, but you shouldn't be looked down upon that just because you look a certain way and hence you're meant to be a certain way. That's completely false. I went to Imperial, which has the second largest Indian society in all of the UK.
Yes, it does.
It does, right? So for me, I'm not going to lie, I felt at home when I met everyone.
Really?
Yeah, I felt I finally found people. So we're completely opposite ends, as you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Like, I finally met people who I could relate to, who had the same interests as me, who could understand my funny jokes, or have me having oil in my hair, or something like small basic.
You put Bella in your hair every night?
I used to have oil in my hair growing up in school, for sure. But then I stopped when I used to get teased by
As you
like,
can see, I have
no hair, no hair.
right now.
And even music, right? Or even dancing on Bollywood films. For me, I had no one to talk about that when I was little. So for me, it was like I finally found my people. Whereas for you, it's like, oh, you know, am I being judged for not being brown enough inside, right? Which I can completely understand. It's like, so being South Asian growing up, my family have always surrounded me with people who were brown. I wouldn't say though that they prepared me for what brown really does mean in society, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So
Talk to me about that, because I don't quite understand that.
I think
Because
so.
I've never
Like,
had an issue. I've only had a couple incidences in my life where, I've had racist remarks made towards me,
yeah,
and that's offended me, or I've had, people move away from me because, I'm brown and I have a beard, and I was carrying a large rucksack at that point in time, and it was just past the London bombings. So I understood why that woman was moving away, and it didn't affect me, but it was always interesting to see that could happen to me.
yeah. And like, that essentially is one of the, like essentially that's basically what I'm trying to say, right? These microaggressions that we face. So even I've had that to me. I think I had large rocks like a few times, like loads of times. I'm a proper neat to have one of those rucksacks with like going to work and stuff. And definitely I've seen people move away from me. You know, those racist remarks that you mentioned, but then also sometimes being brown, you're perceived to be a certain way, as you mentioned, by people who might not be as educated, in my opinion. And then also you already have barriers in your life because you're brown, right? So
What barriers?
huh? So let me talk about in corporate life, for instance,
Okay.
right? So 10% of leadership are BAME. So this word BAME, I hate, by the way, where they group all ethnic minorities into a certain tag.
I don't get what it means.
I don't understand this either, because they think it basically suggests that they think all ethnic minorities are the same, and hence we're going to group you into one tag, which is completely false. But anyway, 10% of leadership in consulting firms, less than 10% are ethnic minorities. And I'll give you a figure from a Black perspective, actually. Less than 2% are Black of that. Okay. So that's 2% of 10%, which is crazy, in my opinion. So the fact is, if it was one off, if it was in one consulting firm or one banking firm, okay, completely get it. But this is a trend you see fully across all corporate companies, not even corporate companies, medicine, well, maybe not medicine, but other industries as well, right? So the fact that there is already a barrier for an individual who is colored to reach a certain ceiling, to reach a certain position, is shocking, first, in my opinion. Because I am a different color to you doesn't mean that I can reach the same potential as you. Like, just let that sit for a moment. I don't understand that, right? And then you're always going to get microaggressions at work. I do think that.
Have you received that before?
Small comments which I don't offend me, or aren't nothing major.
But you recognize.
But I recognize, and I'm sure there are definitely unconsciously people do things which I don't recognize either, right? Because I'm brown. So definitely things which happen in the workplace, and I mean just even in society. The fact when you're walking on the street and then you can be called a derogatory name, the fact that in your home it just still doesn't feel safe. Isn't that the whole meaning of a home, where you feel safe, right?
It's supposed
to, right? So I don't even know where I'm going with this, but essentially my point here is that being brown, you're already placed behind people. in life, I would say. And is recognizing that, it's getting other people to recognize that for different ethnic minorities and white people, I would say, obviously as well, right? And for them to get them to change their behaviors, which is a systematic bias, which is not going to happen for a very long time. And I don't think it's going to happen in our generation, to be honest.
It's going to take longer than 100 years, probably.
Yeah.
From this point, it's going to take longer than 100 years.
And the thing is, you probably don't realize
got to this point, but go on.
I know, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying that it's already taken 100 years to get to this point, and it's going to take another 100, just based off of everyone from South Asia seems to want to get to the West because they believe the grass is greener. There is this intrinsic kind of, I see America, I see UK, I see Canada, and from living there for a year, I realized that I didn't realize how big an issue that was. India is amazing. I understand why you want to get away from it, because the everyday struggle of living is difficult because of the elements, because of the lifestyle there. It's go, 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 go. It's like you can get hit by a car and no one would care.
Yeah.
It's like, I used to go into work with my dad, and people would ring up and say, a tree has fallen in the road. My bike's got trapped underneath it. I can't come into work today. And I'll be on the other end thinking, what the hell has just happened? It's like, it's crazy. So I understand why, but just to get there, just for the privilege and the status sense, I think that's where the issue comes into play. But it's going to take another 100 years of changing people's hearts and minds to realize that isn't why you move to a different country. There's got to be other reasons. It's not just for the better life. There's also got to be an element of educating that individual on what it's like. You can't just go from, South Asia to America and think it's the same way of living. No, that's not how it works.
And you'll realize that a lot of times people from South Asia take a lot to adjust to the Western culture. Specifically people who don't live in cities, I would say, in South Asia. But I would say that you probably haven't realized, but you definitely have had microaggressions because of your colour skin, right? And you probably haven't realized it. And for me, that's fine if I get microaggressions, right? But if it affects me and my career or me being able to reach my potential, that's when it begins to annoy me, and that's when I want to do something about it.
So are you doing anything about it?
I mean, just talking about it is the first step, which I think is helpful. I think Clubhouse has been really great for people to connect. But the second thing I'd love to do from all of this stuff is starting to get actionable actions, which we actually start to progress. At work, I would say, I mean, I didn't really realize this, but at work, I get a lot of messages on Instagram saying, Kajol, it's so good to see a South Asian person talking, being present in the corporate world on YouTube and stuff like that. And that I didn't really think about it when I was starting, but I've been getting floods of messages like this. So for me, it feels like there are people also looking up to me because I'm South Asian. That also means there's so much pressure on my shoulders to not get anything wrong.
I think you're doing a great job. I realized from watching your channel how little I consume female South Asian content, and I realized that that's a chunk of my life that I'm missing. Forget that. How little I look at individuals outside of America and consume their content, because there's 4 billion people on the internet. I don't know how many are on YouTube or create, but I think it's something like isn't it something like 100 million a minute? That's how much is uploaded, and you're like, there is so much more out there. So I've made a decision to try and get into consuming smaller creators and help them on their journey and support them, because there are experiences in there like yours that I feel are pertinent to my life, because I need to educate myself on that world.
And even if you don't feel like you can relate to certain people, there is always something you can take away, be it their opinion, be it their way of seeing things, and the perspective they have, and you learning their perspective. That's the most valuable thing that you can learn, because then you can apply that perspective to your life and see what works for you and it doesn't work for you. So for me, I watch people to learn different perspectives, so I can see my world in a different way.
That's powerful. That is powerful. Auntie Kajol dropping some dimes. Absolute dimes.
Yeah.
Kobe! Love that.
Obama, mic drop.
Literally, I would do it, but I think I might break the mic.
No, I think you would.
Ah, so before we wrap this up, there's a couple of bits I'd like to kind of quick fire you, and you can dive into them for as long as you want. What's the future for Kajol? What does that look like? Does she have a future in terms of the career, the YouTube? I know you've said that I'm just doing the YouTube until it turns into something, but to be specific, are we going to get a management consultancy in the future?
I would love to do that. And if anyone who's watching this can help me, please holler at me, because eventually I'd love to start my own consultancy. I just finding a little bit difficult. Okay, how do I even start this? But I'm basically trying to work my way to be able to do that. There's this whole notion that you have to be like 50, 60, have loads of years under your belt and then start it. But actually, hey, I think I could do it in a few years if I wanted to. It's just knowing how to start for me. So I'm kind of researching into this whole consultancy piece. But otherwise, on my YouTube, I'm really keen to move away from consulting and career only. Would love to move into like investing, entrepreneurship, and productivity, time management, and how this whole concept can sometimes be toxic. But that's another topic. So
We're going to get you back on the podcast to talk about that.
yeah, but yeah, that's kind of the short-term future, I would say, is moving into some of these topics. The long term is making sure that I keep motivated to do all of this.
Keep motivated.
Yes, I need to keep motivated to do all of this.
That is, I haven't heard anyone say that. Like, my long-term goal is to remain motivated. It's always been a short-term goal. Because it's a complete change in the way people think. Like, I am not doing this to stay motivated short-term. I'm actually doing this to stay motivated long-term. But as long as your purpose aligns with no, not your purpose. As long as your passions align with your purpose, that will be all right, right?
Exactly. And that's what keeps you going long term. So for me, making sure I'm passionate about what I'm doing is really important, and that's what keeps me going. So whoever's listening to this and you're unsure, like, how do you know what you should be doing or how you can keep motivated, it all stems by passion, right? And it's fine for your passion to drop, but as long as you can pick it up again, that's all that counts.
I love that. I thank you for coming on. We'll end it here because I think that's a beautiful place to end it. But there is something that I'm beginning to do. Faraz is the guy that we got on last time, has started, and I think it's a beautiful way to continue doing for guests on the podcast, is right now you've got, as long as you want, maybe a minute or so. Yeah, let's cap it at a minute. We like our time slots. We'll cap it at a minute. Anything that you want to say to the people listening, the people watching, absolutely, it can be on motivation, it can be on, something that you want to shout out, whatever. Go for it.
Okay. Wow. So when you go through life, okay, how do I even start this? So in a minute, some of the biggest learnings that I've learned is finding the tribe of people who can keep you going, who you can bounce around things, and who are always going to be there for you to even cry a shoulder on. So find your tribe of people is something which has really helped me. Be passionate about what you're doing, find mentors or people in the space where you can learn from, and never give up. It's okay to take a few weeks off, a few months off if you need it, but keep on going, because finding our purpose is something which we all strive to do. But if you give up on something, you won't. If you give up something which is really important to you, you won't end up being truly happy in life. And for me, that's my end goal, is to be truly happy doing things that I want to do. So I think I'm going to leave it there.
I love that. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for giving up your time. I know you're a busy woman.
No,
But
thank you for having me on.
we will definitely get you back on in the future because I'd love to dive in deeper on some of the topics that you mentioned.
Yeah, for sure. I'm so down.
All right,
Thank
I'll let you get back
you.
to work. I'll see you soon. Bye.